for those of you who have opted for the premium kit on the roof, you'll get your walkway base, which is this long piece here with all the holes, and this is where your walkway supports will slot into from underneath. You need to make sure you get those all round the same way. Once you've done that, you can then take this piece off and fit it over the top. This will fill the gaps and then just leave the holes for your safety railings. And again, you need to make sure that these are put on the correct way. Now on the walkway base, you'll see that, if I can get in a little bit closer, there's a bigger gap there than there is here. And obviously when you fit these in, you need to make sure that, I think from memory, the bigger gap needs to be nearest to the window. So basically this side of your walkway. And then obviously then when you overlap with the top panel, you need to then make sure that they're facing the correct way. So the railings are facing the outer side. So that would fit on here. So you need to make sure this one's turned round, but you need to take these out. I have drawn or engraved a line through, and they're tagged in by 2 little tags on each one. So you've got to spend a little bit of time on taking those out. And these are held in about 4 places. And again, I've engraved a line where you just need to take it out. You don't need to do any painting of this until you actually got it all together. I tend to paint this in either sort of like a dark grey or black. And I tend to quite like the matte black, so I'll do that once that's all done. So let's take all these bits out, stick them in these holes, and then we'll add the top layer, and I'll show you as we go along. So that's our supports in all the holes. Use your cocktail stick to get some glue, just put a tiny little piece on in the hole, and then grab hold of your tweezers. I've got some flat end ones, and literally push them in. They should slot in. Some of them are a little bit tricky, but then what you can do is when you've done one, just turn it over and make sure that the insert has gone through. Then you know it's in position, and then literally use your eye line and try and get it as upright as possible. You're not going to get them all exactly 90 degrees, but they'll be as good as possible. So as you can see, they're both the same. So this end, there's a gap here, there, and near enough on the edges. So this is where obviously it needs to then fit onto your roof. And if I can quickly grab hold of one and turn it around the other way, because that's the way it will fit, and then it should hopefully just then sit on top of your corrugated roof. Now obviously you will need to glue it in position, but obviously we still need to paint this and put the top base on, but that'll give you an idea as to how that will look. So the next thing we need to do is let that dry, and then we're going to add these top pieces to the railings, making sure, as I mentioned earlier, we get the holes in the correct position. So the easiest thing to do is just to literally lift it off your roof as you had it. So this is basically be flat, and then you got to make sure that all your holes are facing outwards. So this piece needs to be glued on top of there. I'm just going to add some glue to the underside of this, and then I'll use a line of my fingers to line it up, make sure it's in position. I'll only use a few little dabbing spots. It doesn't have to be fully glued, it's not going to go anywhere. And then obviously on the other side, you're going to need to make sure that this is replicated around the other way. So make sure you do that. I did end up using a brush to brush some glue all the way along. This rocket colored glue on the model board dries fairly quickly, so I had to work quickly, so I just got a brush and brushed glue all the way down, and then I literally held it up, matched it up with the top, and then used my fingers to go down the edges to make sure it's all gone down the end. Now I have made a slight error on this post model, but that obviously will be rectified for the main one. It's about I think when I forgot, I added a railing at one end and forgot to I increased the length of that, and obviously didn't increase the length of the base, but that will be done in the production model. So, but it gives you the idea. This will allow to dry, and then we can paint this. You'll need to paint both top and bottom, and then obviously then once it's done, it can look to be fitted in position. But obviously we need to add the side ladder that will be going here. The gap between those two holes in the railings is where no railings will be, and that will allow the ladder to come down here. And obviously we need to make sure that that fits first, and then obviously we can line this up in position. I can't mark the corrugated roof, unfortunately. Then obviously then we've got to add the ladder that goes down the side of the building. But that's that one done. I've still got to add the card to the bottom of this one and allow that to dry, and then what I'll most probably do is go and paint those matte black, and then we'll look at making the side ladders. When I've glued the top base, I've then tipped it upside down, and I've got a spare piece of MDF, and I've literally to make sure I just give it a quick rub from side to side to push it down and bond the glue to the top base, obviously being careful that I don't knock any of those supports, and hopefully then that blends and bonds to it quite nicely, and then that's done as well. So we'll move on now and build the side ladder that goes off the roof. For those with the premium pack, obviously doing the roof walkways, you get your safety railings as well. So you get your long railings fit along the side of the roof, and then obviously then you have a single one here which will go between the end and the roof ladder. So the roof ladder basically goes in this gap, and then you've got two end ones that go literally on the end of each one to protect the people walking up there. These need to be painted. I would certainly suggest a very, very light prime. I'm going to be using a sort of like an aluminium silver colour for these. I don't think roof railings were yellow. So I'm going to give it a very quick blast of a white primer, very limited, and then allow that to dry, and then I'll add my aluminium silver on top, and then they need to be cut. So literally get your zippy blade or your knife, and you're literally cutting them right at the base, just tapping them down, and then they'll come out, and they should then fit within the holes of your walkway, providing you haven't put too much paint on. I have allowed for a little tolerance of some paint, so hopefully they'll fit in nicely. So when you add your safety railings, they should just literally hopefully go into these little holes. Now I have subsequently changed this design so the holes go through both pieces now, because this one the holes only went through the top piece, so I had 0.5 mil to glue these in, so it was quite difficult, and I ended up doing two at a time, letting them dry, two at a time, and it took ages. So hopefully they'll slot through. And also I previously mentioned about priming these railings before painting. It may not be necessary if you find the right paint. And I can't remember, I found a gunmetal from the range for about £5-6, and I ended up not priming them, so there's not as much paint. And obviously the least amount of paint you have on the bottom, the easier it'll be to slot these through. Now I've made the hole slightly wider as well, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that will allow you to thread these in to all these holes, and then you can add the glue in before you put them in. So just might just worth do a dummy run just so you can get them in. Make sure you get the railings in. They are quite long and flexible, so do be careful. If you're happy, then I would just use your cocktail stick and just literally go in and add a dot of glue, the tiniest dot of glue inside, and then thread your railings in, and then perhaps use your eye to try and get them as level as possible, and then obviously do the same with the end ones as well. Hopefully I've added some extra hole size space for that to make it a lot easier. This was very, very tricky doing mine, so hopefully I've made it easier for you.